Okay. This is our third attempt at recording our first episode.
And why is that, Lexi? It is not because of us.
No, it's, I don't know, children
Yeah, absolutely.
in the spring
External factors for sure.
with preschool and germs.
I think this is just a test and something that, I think you and I do a really good job of, and that I appreciate you for, is just communicating that through too, though. Is that, everything is not going to go exactly to plan.
Mm-hmm.
All mothers know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But really, we've been trying to record these podcasts and get this started for a while, and there's always been something that has come up, and I think we've been dealt the decision to say, do we put this on pause and be there for our family, or do we continue to push through and know that we have an amazing support system that believes in what we're doing and what we're sharing with everyone? And that sort of was our morning again. It was almost like it started all over again.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll paint a picture. So, because nobody knows us yet. Jessica has 2 kids.
Yes. Yeah.
You want to tell us about
Sure.
them?
Yeah, no, I'd love to.
And then tell us their symptoms this morning.
What is going on with my life? Okay, so I have 2 children. I have a 3.5-year-old son and a 1-year-old daughter. Literally, we just had our birthday party a couple days ago. And last night, my daughter, my 1-year-old, was acting a little funky, had a little bit of eye issues going on, a little discharge, but we were out getting family photos, so I thought it was just really windy. Woke up this morning and she had her eyes were sealed shut. But a prequel to that was at 2 a.m. Last night, my son woke me up and said that he was extremely cold and he needed blankets, and he was literally shivering. And I covered him with blankets and, of course, snuggled him up. And then around 3:30, he broke a fever, 103. And that held strong for about 4 hours. And a couple hours after that, he was totally fine. I think it's just a journey of a story to tell of exactly what happened with the kiddos being sick and how many times I think my plans have pivoted in the last 12 hours.
Yeah.
And same for you.
Basically since they were born.
Yeah, I know, seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. So I also have 2 kids. I have a 5-year-old. She'll be 6 soon. My girl. And a 3-year-old boy. That's actually how Jessica and I met, but we can talk about that separately, because what we're talking about right now is our children and their illness. My son just threw up in the bathtub last night. Yeah.
This is the worst illness season.
Yeah, they go to the same preschool, so we're sharing all the germs. We have not walked into urgent care on the same day without planning.
It's so funny. I feel like we live lives in parallel so much to the T that we literally walked in, which was a month ago, maybe?
Yeah, a different illness.
A different illness, same children. I walked into urgent care with my daughter, and who did I see in the lobby? Lexi. I saw Lexi in the lobby with her daughter, and this was completely unplanned. We hadn't even just talked that morning.
This was the last time we rescheduled, wasn't it?
Probably. I wouldn't put it past me. It's always been due to illness. The very first time was because my kiddo got sick, and both of them were down.
Yeah.
And I'm both kids are home today. I'm not going to be able to. I remember it was on Friday, and we weren't able to, and I had to reschedule with you.
And I think I did once. I think it might have been the time we saw each other in urgent care.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it is.
It could have been.
That was the second time, and then this morning was almost the third, so this almost didn't even get out.
Yeah, there's balance here.
Yeah.
And Jessica and I made the decision this morning, after thoughtfulness and touching base with a friend, each other, what we were comfortable doing.
Yeah.
Were we going to reschedule again, or were we going to record? Yeah, it's a balance, and the sickness has been brutal.
I know. And I think that it's really just a very transparent story to share with you that motherhood plus our passions, our interests, our businesses, our entrepreneur life, if you will, can be in alignment with each other. They all can coexist together, but not without intentional practice and communication and a strategy and an amazing support system.
Yes.
Because we were supposed to be at the studio at 9. We went from, I don't know if I'm going to make it. I'll see you at 9. JK, I don't think I'll see you at all today. To let's meet at 10. And here we are. So
recording at 11:30. Yeah. Yeah. That's just kind of how the balance is between being a mom and being a business owner, and also having multiple passions. And
but it was hard. It was hard to get here, I'll be honest with you. I think this is sort of like the realness and the emotion coming out a little bit, but it was heavy. It was a heavy morning for, I think, for both of us. You know, having sick children at home and trying to make the decision of what to do, and it felt like a heavy decision in the moment. And I think it's hard because oftentimes, like, maybe some of my insecurities will come into play about my role as a mother, or the shame or guilt that I'm feeling and the type of decision that I'm going to make. What other people might think for like a societal expectation of mothers and their role in this. And you brought up something really well in our conversation this morning, back and forth, sending voice memos back and forth. Also talking about that marriage, and, you know, thankfully in our marriages, like, it is a shared partnership.
Yeah.
And as mothers, we don't have to carry all of the load as maybe society expects us to, or maybe we...
Yeah, I think societal norms maybe have put that on us. And so we're holding ourselves to these expectations that, you know, maybe they aren't even really the norm anymore, but based on our upbringing and what we believe we're supposed to do based on what other people will think of us if we don't. Like, we put these pressures on ourselves. Maybe nobody else is really putting pressure on you or me.
Yeah, that's
not
so
even
true.
our husbands, really. It's probably like 90% internal, actually, if I think about it.
Oh yeah, like us inside of our own heads, thinking that, oh, if we make one decision over another, if I choose to podcast today versus cancel my entire day and stay home with my children instead of my husband doing it, that maybe I'm going to be viewed or frowned upon as a mother because I should be there for my children, and all of the things that kind of segue after that.
Yeah.
Without realizing, like, I was up at 2 and then 3 and then again at 6, and I slept on the couch. You know what I mean? Like, there was so many elements where I was there for my children, both of them. And it's okay to also say, I also need to take a break. I'm going to share this load with you.
Yeah.
Because if it's not shared, then we end up internalizing so much of it. And then, you know, the whole cascade can continue.
I hear everything you're saying. And what the word that stuck out to me the most was should. How many shoulds do we put on ourselves throughout the day? First of all, as a mom. Second of all, as a wife or partner in a relationship. Oh, I'm not going to be home for dinner, so I should put something in the crock pot to make it easier for everybody else. You know, these are all shoulds. I hate that word.
Me too. So do I.
It's the worst word. But I'm very guilty of using that word, like, often.
Even though we're intentional about it, it still happens, like, right now.
Oh, yeah.
This morning.
Yeah. There's what you should do, and then there is what maybe you ought to do to feel better, or what you owe to your family just in terms of their care and what they need, but not necessarily what you should do based on these internal stories that you're telling yourself.
Yeah. And I think with all these built up shoulds, it then creates internal conflicts or even external conflicts that are not necessary. When really, if we didn't put those pressures upon ourselves, they probably wouldn't have morphed into anything else.
Yeah. My should is, it comes from a place of my husband makes more money than I do. And so I should always prioritize his meetings and his work and his career. And in fact, we've moved, I don't know how many times now, across state lines even. Grateful because I met Jessica, but yeah, I should put his work as the top priority. But I started my own business, and I might not be making as much as him yet, but I very well will be at some point.
Absolutely.
I have big aspirations, but, even for me this morning or last night when my son puked in the bathtub, I was like, I should stay home tomorrow. I should, because he's got to go and provide. But, what about our needs and our ability to be present because we're satisfying our own passion projects, but also our own businesses?
Yeah.
The things that we need to things that we truly need to actually feel like, I don't know, satisfied.
Yeah, and that we're thriving in this life too,
Right.
and that this life was also given to us to also bring our gifts to the world. And the more we should for other people, other expectations, other external beings outside of ourselves, then I think that we slowly deteriorate a little bit within our own self. I was curious if you felt like that in early motherhood.
I literally was about to say that. I was so about to say, okay, this is exactly like all the shoulds that you put on yourself when you have a child. I should be nursing, right? It's such a touchy thing. Like, you put it on yourself.
Yeah.
Basically, your baby just needs to be fed, right? I put the nursing thing on myself so extremely hard that I was starving because my daughter would have reflux to literally everything I ate. I was eating potatoes.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Because you were just trying to provide for her because I should.
Because I should be, right?
Yeah. And as a first time mom, I think it's so hard. I mean, I went through a very similar experience too. And I think a lot of first time moms also feel this pressure, this external pressure to make sure that they're napping the way that everybody says they should, that they're sleeping in the bed the way they should, they're nursing the way they should, or you're being an adequate mother, if you will.
Yep.
And I was just before we, literally press record on this, I was telling Lexi a story, of my personal first year. And I feel like I let that consume my life and thoughts for the first 4 to 6 months of my son's life, and as a first-time mom, because he was my first, I was constantly seeking external opinions, advice, education, and there's nothing wrong with seeking, external education and stuff like that, but I feel like as a mother, that's where I first started really becoming in tune with, wait a second, I think that if I go inward more and I listen to my mother's intuition, that I actually have a lot of the answers because I know my baby best and my baby knows me best. And if we can, stay in this dyad together, then a lot of these shoulds will go away because it's not about anyone else. It's just about, our partnership together. But I feel like I, lost a lot of that time that I didn't have to be worrying so much about what everyone else was doing or what I should be doing. And I could have just, once around 6 months, I kind of let that go. And I just started going inward and say, well, what do I want to do? How do I want to feed my baby? How do I want to put my baby down and all of those things? And I thought that was really helpful.
Do you feel like that's when you started bonding with him?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think our relationships changed because I was able to focus on our bond more instead of focusing on all of the things I should be checking off of a box in a day.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about for you?
I had anxiety too. And I don't know, I'm sure there was a significant portion of it that was hormonal. But a lot of it was just these things that I put on myself. I'll say it again.
Yeah.
I told myself I should be doing all of these things and that was what was causing my anxiety a lot of the time. I mean, sure, there was I'm wide awake in the middle of the night watching my newborn baby, making sure she's breathing. Like,
Yeah.
there was that. But then there was also, like, what should I be feeding? How many times should I be nursing? Like, oh, she's spitting up. What does that mean? Like, oh my gosh, so many things. I had anxiety big time.
Yeah.
And anxiety attacks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just not knowing if I was doing anything right. And my mom is gone. She was not able to be a part of that. And so, yeah, I didn't have, like, the midnight call to somebody to be like, hey, is this normal? Like,
yeah.
she just spit up, like, it seems like everything I fed her that I worked so hard to feed her, she just spit it all up all over me. I didn't know.
You don't know. And I think it's so easy when you don't know to then all of a sudden assume that, oh, well, I'm failing. I must be failing her or him, right? And there were a lot of times where I was having a lot of breastfeeding struggles in our first few months and then and beyond. I ended up exclusively pumping for 14 months for my son.
Wow.
And
good for you.
Yeah, I regret it. I'll be honest with you. Because I spent so much time attached to the pump. I did. And I really felt like I did a lot of it because obviously breast milk is amazing and it was created for, our babies perfectly. And I have no qualms about that at all. Like, it's absolutely gold. But I also felt like the underlying reason of why I did it for so long was because I felt like I should.
Yeah.
And I had to.
Same.
And I couldn't supplement because that's just not what you're supposed to do. You're not a good mom if you feed your child formula and all of these things. And
so much pressure.
It was a lot. And
I made myself feel better about supplementing because at a point I did have to. My supply was shriveling up and I wasn't able to eat much. I already can't eat gluten, but then I also cut out eggs. I cut out peanuts. I cut out so much to try and still nurse. My supply dipped. But the way that I made myself feel better about supplementing was I flew in from the UK because their standards are different. Like this fancy, really expensive formula that was supposed to be better for her because she was hypoallergenic.
I remember.
All of this.
Yeah.
All of this stuff.
Yeah.
And she's just as great as the kid next to her who maybe didn't fly in the UK formula.
And Penny is a beautiful, smart girl.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing is you would have no idea.
No.
You'd have no idea,
Yeah.
But yeah, we co-fighters was supplemented as well, if you will. Tell me about the differences between your feeding experiences. I don't know if we want to dive down this over here to here, but I feel like the differences of first-time mom anxieties and pressures put upon ourselves to second time.
It's the second time through. Yeah, I was much easier on myself when I had my son when it comes to nursing. But also he didn't get sick from my milk. He's got an iron gut. He can handle anything. Except for the other night when he puked in the bathtub last night.
True.
But yeah, no, he was attached to me for the first 6 months and he would not take a bottle. Refused. Wow. Absolutely did not leave my side the first 6 months. And I remember I finally got him to take the bottle and was like, I get to go on a date night now.
Freeing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then COVID hit.
Oh my gosh.
And we were quarantined. And then do you know what he did? He refused me. So then I was attached to my pump and pumping and giving him the milk out of the bottle. He was like, oh, this is way easier and faster and I don't need you, Mom.
Wow. I always feel like babies have their own path too. And I think a lot of it is probably lack of support for mothers, not having consistent support systems in place in order for us to thrive in feeding and all of those continued support systems. However, I feel like at second time mom, you're a lot less hard on yourself. I know I was for sure. My postpartum experience with Matney was so different with my daughter, was so different with my son.
Well, you know what to expect. And I feel like nobody told me about breastfeeding and the challenges of feeding in general
Mm-hmm.
before I had my daughter.
Yeah.
I came out like, what is this?
I watched a few YouTube videos. I knew they were supposed to have like a big wide open mouth, and that's about all I knew as a first time mom.
Ugh, I had the lactation consultant coming.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she helped tremendously, but I had, it was bad.
Yeah.
And painful and graphic. We don't need to get into the details.
I know that we're not alone in that either, because I remember when I had my son about like a month in, I made a post on social media, and all the caption said was, breastfeeding is hard. That's all it said. Period. And I had so many like messages and comments just like offering me validation and offering me like support, you know, just saying like it is hard, and they were sharing their struggles too in it. And I'm not really sure how this turned into a breastfeeding thing, but you know, this is Lexi and I in a nutshell.
Tangents. This is why it's a conversational podcast.
I know.
Honestly, we had plans of what we were going to talk about. You know, like maybe we were talking about our word of the year. We both picked the same word, of course. Like,
yeah.
Maybe we would talk about how this idea came to us at the right time, and together we knew everything was in alignment for us to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then this morning we're like, you know, episode 1, it's time to hit record, and we're just going to talk about life.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's a little bit of a heavy way to start. Not all the podcast episodes are going to be about our graphic
I can assure you they probably won't be, but I do think that it actually shows a lot of realness into what this podcast is going to be about too, and our journey.
That's what we're here to do, is just normalize what it is like to be a mom, a partner, a business owner, an entrepreneur, and also a human being, like our own individual person, aside from all of these other things that we think we should be.
Let's back up to that. We think we should be. And I think this even starts like before having children.
Oh, yeah.
I was talking about this the other day, and I'm not sure, you know, you kind of validated that it's true, but I'm not sure if you guys feel this way. But for me, I never really grew up feeling like I even wanted to be a mom. And it's not that I didn't want to have children. I knew that I wanted to have children, but I didn't have that like instinct in me as a little girl, like, or growing up, even in high school or college, thinking about like, oh, I just can't wait to be a mom. Like, that was never really my story. My story was so much of, I can't wait to do really amazing things for the world, and to bring, like, to learn about what my mission is, and to serve others in that way, and to make sure that it feels in alignment with me. And I feel like I'm created to do big things for a lot of, you know, for others, and I just don't know what that is yet. And all of that kind of was more bigger than I can't wait to be a mom. Like, you know what I mean? But, and I know everyone can't resonate with that, but that was my journey and my story.
Why do you think?
Gosh, I feel like we could go into deep dive on this one. But I'm not sure.
No.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I didn't have it in my sights either.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I would be. Like, I knew at some point I would be.
Yeah, like, you knew you would be a mom. I knew I would be a mom.
I knew I would be a mom. Yeah, but it wasn't like, I gotta start trying now. I want to have a baby now. I remember since I was young, because my parents divorced when I was 5 years old. And so I grew up with the 2 households and everything that goes along with that. Different episode. Maybe not even an episode. But I said from a very young age, people would ask me, like, not that they would ask you, but I would say to anybody, I'm not getting married till I'm at least 30 years old.
I love that.
I was like the free-spirited friend.
Yeah.
Had relationships, but like, meh.
You were doing your own thing. You were really independent, and you had your own vision for what you wanted to tackle, I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, I just was free-spirited gal, living my life, and then in walks my now husband and changes everything. It's like, oh,
here you are.
They always come at the moments that you're not expecting them to come, which is exactly our journey as well. Maybe another podcast as well.
Totally. I'd sworn off
our husbands.
I was done. I'm like, never again.
It is so funny that happens. But I think that even though we didn't have this grand vision to become moms, we did, and we ended up knowing we were going to be. But I was kind of the same way. I think I was nervous. I was more scared than anything of letting go of my independence and my free will. And, you have to be really selfless as a mom. Yeah. And I think that was really hard for me to put my needs and interests and desires and aside, vulnerably. That is really hard for me.
Same. Mm-hmm. And not that we're selfish people. Everybody wants to put their own interests first. Maybe people don't admit it, but everybody is selfish, independently selfish. And, then you have kids and you enter into a partnership with somebody and things have to change.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the biggest learning lesson, really, is learning how to balance putting other people's needs in line with your own. And when you become a mom, suddenly it is everybody's needs are more important than mine. And then you start to, not for everybody, but at least for me, the second I started putting everybody above myself is when I got lost.
Yeah, absolutely. And same for me, really. I think once having children, it was one more thing on top of everything else that I didn't really realize. Am I making decisions on a daily basis that are really filling me with joy and that feel in alignment to where I'm at and where I want to go? And after having children, it really puts things into perspective, because then you start making your decisions differently. And I think for me, I was sort of coasting in that. And then having kids sort of forced me to really find out what it meant to live in alignment with what I desired. And I feel like that definitely happened after I had my son. I had to make some really hard decisions.
Mm-hmm. It's like you think you have all the time in the world. I don't know about you, but before having kids, it was like, I'm so busy, like all these things going on. And then you have a kid and you're like, oh, this is what it's really like.
Yeah.
To juggle a lot of things.
And then you actually have 2 kids.
Yeah, right? And then you become more efficient. Mm-hmm. But you become more efficient, but you also have to start making hard choices of whose needs need to be met in the immediate moment. Even like this morning, whose needs are we focusing on today?
Yeah. And I think it's, you can peacefully you can coexist them together, is what I'm trying to say. I think that, we were both mothers first. And throughout our conversation of even arriving here to record this podcast, it's like family first, until we both felt in alignment that, okay, our family is a part of us and who we are. And now we feel in alignment to move forward and continue with the podcast. But we've been back and forth this morning for a while.
Yeah, you texted me. It was like, what?
I think it was like 5:30 in the morning.
I was like, it's not 6 a.m. yet. And I was like, okay, it's, I get you. Like, we'll see how this plays out.
Yes.
Because I already had the sick kid, and very grateful for my husband and my stepmom for helping out.
Yeah.
And, I think not that we were putting our needs above anybody else's, but we had to be okay in the decisions we were making. And we didn't just willy-nilly say, oh, you're going to watch the kids. I have this going on today. It was a conversation, and it was working together to come up with a solution and a compromise.
Yeah. Yeah. And being okay with whatever happened on the backside of that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like that we did that too. I think that was really powerful, because I feel like I didn't move forward until I felt in alignment with it. And I felt sure and I felt confident in that decision moving forward. But I appreciate your grace through it as well.
Well, we have these ups and downs and these moments of making decisions. And once you get more in touch with your own body and learn how to feel into it, all morning in my gut, I still felt like we were going to record. But I wanted to give you space to process it in your own way. And waited.
Yeah.
And when you felt it in your heart,
Yes.
then you texted me or we called and you were like, no, I figured out how we can still make it work today.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a processing thing for me. You know, I think sometimes it's easy to like make decisions so quickly for other people, right?
Yeah.
And then the more I sat in it, and the more like I thought about it, and the more I had conversations with my husband, who was extremely supportive in that, it was like, no, this feels in alignment with me and I'm ready to move forward now. And so I think it's, you know, all of my decisions are made that way now, is processing, going inward, and then quick action. Moving forward. This is the decision, we're moving forward. So,
but not until we feel it in our body. And
but I think the important like theme here is to feel it, right? It's instead of just not just saying, well, woe is me, it's all over, I'll just take the heat of everything. And if you are that type of person, or if you are that mother that is doing that, we invite you to also check in with yourself and ask yourself, like, how do you feel about this? Do you need support? Do you need to go inward and ask yourself what will bring you joy in this moment? What will bring you peace? What makes you feel certain?
Yeah. And it's been a process to learn that about myself. I've long been somebody who puts other people first and ignores my own internal signals that are telling me, hey, you need to slow down or you need to exercise, whatever it is. I was ignoring those, signals, and I was keeping myself very busy because it's easier to ignore the signals when you're a busy bee.
Yeah.
And it's taken a lot of slowing down and a lot of internal work and processing for me to just know, like, I'm going to trust my intuition. And I know this is right, or I know this is wrong, or if I'm unsure, I'm just going to wait.
Yes.
I'm just going to wait for a little while until I do know how to move forward.
The answers are within us, really. That's the most beautiful thing, is like
where this is going.
The body really does send you the signals. We just have to be willing to receive them and be willing to listen and look out for those and to seek out those signals. But it's so true. Like, your body will tell you. And if your body does not get heard over time, that's where poor health comes from, or the stressors will sit in our body at different, points in our body. And I think that's just a result of us not tuning in and receiving the signals that our body is trying to give us.
Yeah. That sounds like episode 1.2.
I agree. I think we should dive into that. We also want to be mindful of this being a breakable, you can break this episode apart as a mom. 30 minutes,
Yeah, I think we came in, we're going to introduce ourselves and our whole life story and everything, but no, it's really just about this organic conversation, and we didn't really know what episode 1.2, this is 1.1, by the way, or 1.0, whatever. We didn't know where it was going to go, but I think we have a clear direction, and this is just a bite-size episode. Yeah. So maybe for the next one, we'll dive deeper into like what you do, Jessica, to lean into your body. What are your intuition practices? What do you feel? How do you know when you're making the right decision and when you need more time? And I'll share my own. And
I love that. And I think we can even dive into it of how we started that process before maybe our businesses started too.
Yeah.
Sharing more in depth of that. I love that.
We'll give the life story without saying, I went to college at blah, blah, blah university, and then I got married. Yeah. We'll be real.
Okay. We'll see you next time.
Yeah. Bye.